Here are some of the best steps to living life how you want it. Number 8. No worries. Fear exists for all of us, whether rational or irrational. For example, plane crashes are definitely real occurrences that happen from time to time, no matter how rare. Fear like this is naturally occurring and is actually necessary in order to preserve our lives. We wouldn't have made it this long on Earth if it was ingrained in all of us. However, anxiety and fear are only useful in small doses. Anxiety is mostly exaggerated or needless fear. Anxiety really boils down to fear of injury or fear of what someone thinks of us, with the latter being the most common. So how should we get over our anxiety? For actual physical danger, we have two options. Take skydiving as an example. We can either not skydive to remove the danger, or we do it and just accept the risk. No amount of worrying is going to change the situation. To take the edge off the situation, we need to just remind ourselves of the truth that a tiny percentage of people get injured while skydiving. For anxiety, not involving physical danger, we just have to think about the actual consequences of what would happen if things don't go our way. For example, if it's singing karaoke at a random bar, what's the worst case scenario? Singing off key in front of people we'll never see again in our lives? The most likely thing that'll happen is that everyone will forget our performance in a few hours and life goes on. Situations in our heads are most of the time much worse than what happens in real life. We have to break out of our comfort zone in order to keep improving. Number 7. Self-discipline. Most of the time, the easy way out seems like it's the most rewarding way to live life. However, the harder option is almost always the better option. If we ask people if they'd rather have a piece of chocolate cake or have the body of their dreams, everyone would probably say the latter. However, we all know the grim reality. Not many people are disciplined enough to have the body they want. So, how do we ultimately get the outcomes that we want? Self-discipline is the key. We essentially have to repeatedly do actions that lead to our desired outcome every day. That means self-discipline and typically change as well. Change is hard, but it can happen, especially if we incorporate change slowly. Even if it's something small, it adds up over time. We are what we do repeatedly, and in order to make things a habit, we'll need to add it in our daily lives. For most habits, the hardest part is just taking the first step. If getting to the gym is hard, sometimes all it takes is just getting to the gym. The next hard part is doing it repeatedly. We can make things easier by creating a schedule or by doing the same activities at the same time every day. We can also reinforce new habits by giving ourselves small rewards after we complete a task. Once we're used to it, then it becomes easy. We just need to remember that we're all human and there will be times when we don't do what we need to do. These bumps in the road will happen. But the only way to achieve results that we want is, of course, self-discipline. Number 6. No approval needed. One of the irrational desires that we've probably all had at one time in our lives is the desire for everyone we know to like us. Our desire for approval and attention is probably at the highest time ever in history, as we only need to take a look at Facebook and Instagram. It's completely normal to want acceptance and approval from people that are important to us. But as always, it's a fine line. What are some things we need to keep in mind when it comes to approval? 1, we definitely cannot make everyone happy no matter what we do. We'll always have haters, and that's something that won't ever change. Some people will just be disapproving for us because of their own issues that we cannot control. Also, if we're consistently trying to win other people's approval, this means mainly living for what other people want you to do, instead of living for what you want to do. Ironically enough, the more we want other people's approval, the more needy we appear, and the more people actually dislike us. We only have one life, and we should only live our lives how we want to, no matter what other people think. Number 5. Right here, right now. We all know people out there who seem to be time travelers. Maybe it's an uncle that brings up his past football glory in high school or college. Maybe it's a friend that always talks about the good old days of high school. We also have friends that are always in the future, talking about how they can't wait for some trip or some event. The funny thing is, when they're in that moment, they're not even enjoying it. They're worried about planning for the next thing to happen. Knowing what happened in the past is useful because that means experience and it lets us know what we should and shouldn't do. However, dwelling on the past excessively serves no purpose because it already happened and it doesn't change anything about the present. Living for the future consistently is the same thing because it has not happened, and we give up living in the moment. We need to remember that all we have in life is the moment that's happening to us right now. Being able to take it all in and enjoy what we have right now is what really matters. Sure, taking a few photos on vacation to show some of your friends back home is fine, but taking hundreds of photos and not taking in the moment when we're actually there? That's definitely wasting actually going to the destination. The point is, when it comes to living life, live in the moment. The past is the past, and the future, it'll be here before you know it. Number 4, just do it. How many of us don't do something just because we're afraid of the possible negative outcomes? We should never fail, and we should always be able to achieve what we set out to do, right? That's definitely an irrational belief. If we never fail in life, that means we didn't set high enough goals and we didn't try hard enough. Thinking that failure is something to be embarrassed of is a mistake that keeps many people from doing what they want. Nobody can be good at everything they do. Trying to be great at one thing is already really hard to do. Trying to be great at everything is impossible. The best thing to do is to not care about the outcome of whatever it is we do. The only thing to focus on is to focus on doing the best we can do. Whatever happens, happens. If success is the only thing we strive for, we'll feel anxious about failure. This means we take fewer chances, stopping us from attempting some of our most ambitious projects. Most of the time, the fear of failure is much worse than the actual failure itself. A good example is with sports. Some people just hate to lose, to the point that they would rather not play at all just to avoid losing. Who really cares if someone loses in a game of pickup basketball or a game of tennis? It's not exactly Game 7 of the NBA Finals or the championship match of the US Open. And if it actually is, well, at least you're getting paid. 3. Accept the facts. Well, let's face it, life isn't always rosy and filled with happiness and pleasure. There are plenty of things that suck in life. There are racist people in the world. Sometimes people say mean things. People behave in a way we don't agree with. Unpleasant things in life are all around us. However, the grim realities of life isn't really what makes people upset. It's the fact that people believe that other people and things in general must be better than they actually are. The fact that they can't change those things in order to suit them is what makes people upset. There's no reason why people have to act any other way than the way they already act. Sure, some people do behave badly, but that doesn't mean they shouldn't behave the way they want to. They just happen to behave in a way that you or I don't believe in and don't like. We shouldn't let another person's behavior affect how we feel. When one of our friends has an annoying habit, we forget that we ultimately chose to have that person in our life. And we also choose to whether or not to let that person's behavior affect how we feel. Very rarely does someone's behavior actually harm us physically. Allowing ourselves to be upset at things that we cannot control, such as getting angry at the fact that our favorite sports team lost, distracts us from the very thing we can control, which is our mood and our behavior. Number 2, no more absolutes. How many of us think of a statement like, I have to be always on time, or I have to be absolutely perfect on my job? Thinking in absolutes is an irrational and illogical way of going through life. Obviously, we're not perfect. Thinking in a rigid way often makes us more upset when something we don't like happens. When we think in absolutes, it creates anxiety and insecurity for ourselves, because how can we be expected to be perfect? Think about how defensive we get as soon as we hear the words, you never do, or you always do, from someone else. Let's take our previous statement. I have to be absolutely perfect on my job, and add an or else I'll definitely be fired to it. If you think in these absolute terms, you'll actually make yourself behave even worse. This is because you make yourself feel as if making a mistake will be the end of the world, leading to anxiety. Even if you did lose your job, it's definitely not the end of the world. You never know. The new job may just be a way better opportunity. How we talk to ourselves is very important to the way we behave and the way we feel. Of course, the way we talk to other people is very important as well. However, for most of us, if we talk to ourselves as nicely as we talk to other people, we would get better results and have way less anxiety. Number 1, choose happiness. What we choose to think about affects what emotional state we're in. Most of the time, we're able to actually choose what we think about. Of course, sometimes bad news happens, such as the passing of a family member that puts us in a state of grief that's natural. Certain negative feelings are good things because it allows us to push to get what we want or allow us to avoid harmful things. However, letting certain emotions take over our lives for an extended period of time isn't healthy or helpful. At the end of the day, we can choose to focus on the things we want to think about. We don't have to think about things that make us upset. At the same time, we should also learn to not let things we can't control and don't like affect how we feel. Learning to understand that happiness and pleasure aren't the same things, and learning to be at peace with the truths around us goes a long way. Here's what's next.